Hi, Mary Me. So, this is just going to be a quick video, I hope, because I'm going out with friends for lunch, so I really should get ready instead of talking to a camera. Anyway, I saw some videos on YouTube and I got an idea to this and I just had to get it out. And what I want to discuss today is reincarnation and what I like to call the too many Cleopatras syndrome. Now, generally, those that are against the idea of reincarnation, they say that, but look at how many people claim to be Cleopatra, Napoleon, various forms of royalty, Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, all sort of interesting, famous people. Where are all the housewives, the millers, the basically people who just lived their lives and died, surrounded by friends and loved ones? And also, how can there be reincarnation and so many people claim to be one person? Can't all be Cleopatra, can they? And I have some thoughts on this. Now, fair warning, this is just my mind spinning. I don't have basically, I'm not an expert on reincarnation, and this is my ideas around it at this point and should be taken for what it is. Now, first of all, for the too many Cleopatra syndrome, I think there can be a few explanations for this that doesn't just involve bullshit. Well, first let me point out some natural explanations. Basically, I think that a lot of so-called past life memories are in fact things that we have experienced and forgotten. And quite often it can be things you have experienced while very young. For example, when I was a little girl, around 3 or 4 or so, um, actually before I was 3, when I was around 2 or so, I went around and I said, when I was a little girl, we had dolls living on the wall and they flew. And basically, what this was that up until I was 6 months old, my mother had pet birds. They died when I was 6 months old. But I remember them, but my infant mind couldn't reconcile what they was. So to me, they became flying dolls. And I think that a lot of past life memories can be this. Things that you have seen on TV, things that have affected you when you were very young, and that then come back in flashbacks and so on. You can feel very, very strongly about it. So there's a natural explanation. Another explanation can be that in Chaos Magic we speak about creating our own gods. And this also ties in a bit to, for example, the ancient world, where kings and sometimes queens and priests and so on sometimes were thought to be living gods. And in many ways, the worship of celebrities in this day and age is very similar to that. In a way, they become archetypes. They become a part of the collective subconscious in a way that their energies becomes very prevalent. And I think it is possible for a person to attune to that energy and might then get flashbacks of that person's lives, might feel extremely connected to that person without that necessarily meaning they have been that person in another life, but they instead have connected to their energies. Because here's the point about past life memories. It's very difficult to know what's a psychic flash, what's attuning with an energy, what's suppressed memories, and what is actually a past life memory. Because these things interact so much. And even the past life memories I have, I can't be sure if they are just an energy I've picked up on, some suppressed memory that really isn't connected, or if it is an actual past life memory. Now, another thing that I do think is possible is for a soul to split up. I do think that it's possible for the essence of a person to incarnate in several bodies. Because I think that when you look at something that is pure spirit, I don't think they have the same limits of time and space as physical entities do. And as such, it is completely possible for somebody to be incarnated several times or be incarnated in several bodies. Or even, I think it's possible for somebody to be born sharing somebody's soul, basically being an incarnation while the other person is still alive. And I'm gonna tell you a story, and you're gonna think me insane by this, but it is very odd. Um, when I was around 20, 19 or 20, I was 20. The pet dog that I got as a little girl died. He didn't survive an operation. So, sweetest little thing, his name was Mario. Guess where he got that name. And I was heartbroken. Now, I had my pet cat Maud, and so I wanted a companion for her. So, I was still living with my mother at the time. So we went to an animal shelter to pick out a cat. Because since I was moving and so on and so forth, it's easier to have cats through those changes than a dog. Anyway, so we came to the cat shelter and there was all sorts of cats there. But I was immediately drawn to this ugly little furball. He was he had the same color as Jabba the Hutt. His eyes were tiny and very close together, and he had so long fangs that they were outside his mouth when it was closed. And he was just this lump of fur and fat. Words cannot describe how ugly that cat was. And also, he just sort of wasn't very sociable, curled into a corner, and I was immediately drawn to him. So I chose him, and I named him Leo, because he seemed to respond to that name. Anyway, as soon as Leo got into the house, he started to do the things that Mario used to do. And my mother said that it, he feels like Mario. He acts like Mario. He has the same habits as Mario. And Mario was uh, extremely connected with my mother. And Leo also became very connected to her. And he just acted completely like that dog. And my mother said, it's so it's so odd. This cat, if I didn't know better, if I didn't know that this cat was born 2 years before Mario died, I would have said he was his reincarnation. And I think it's possible that a bit of that basically they can have shared a soul, or that Leo know that Mario's soul knew it was going to pass soon, and so a part of it incarnated into this cat. And as such, I do think it's possible that more than one person can be Cleopatra. Now, does that mean that everybody who claims such a thing actually were Cleopatra? No. Now, as for an explanation for why there are more people who live extremely interesting lives, there are more starstruck lovers, witches burned at the stake, uh, there are more people telling these kinds of stories than, oh, well, you see, I was a housewife in Arkansas. I had 5 kids. Um, the most exciting thing in my life was when I won $10 at the local bingo, and I died happy and content in bed, surrounded by my family and loved ones. Why are there fewer of these stories? Well, because I think that they won't come up as often. Basically, unless you do specifically try to remember past lives. Or if you specifically try to make sure that your next incarnation remembers your life. Most will forget. However, I think that very, very traumatic experiences, being killed, being hunted, being abused, basically horrible traumatic experiences, I think they sort of mark the soul so that it's easier for these experiences to come up. And since very often the extremely dramatic happens to people that are in situations where the extremely dramatic can happen, there will be more army generals, more witches burned at the stake, and more pretty noblemen than there is housewives and plumbers. Not because these aren't reborn, but because very often their lives will not as easily be remembered unless you do a very massive attempt at doing so. So yeah, I think that you should be skeptical of any past life memory. I do believe in reincarnation, but I believe it's a very difficult paranormal phenomena to pin down and say this is it. However, I don't think that because there are more princesses than plumbers in what people remember, that should automatically make you say, no, there are nothing to reincarnation. And the same with people who are famous that people remember now. When it comes to people who are famous, one thing is that it's more likely that people have experienced this person on TV, or something like that when they were very young, forgotten about it, and then it pops up and they think there's a past life memory. Also, clearly, some people do lie, make up stories, or even convince themselves of something like that to sound more interesting. So saying, oh, I was Marilyn Monroe, makes somebody seems a lot more interesting than saying, no, I was a poor fisherman in Beijing. Is that a sea city? Pardon my geographical knowledge. It's just not working. Anyway, I think that there will be uh, a lot more people claiming to be these. And I do think that if somebody claims to be somebody famous, somebody extremely interesting, you can be even more skeptical because then there sort of is a motivation to lie about it, a motivation to convince yourself of something like that. However, I also think that when somebody becomes an icon, like for example Marilyn Monroe, almost everybody knows who Marilyn Monroe is. Her posters are on walls, her face on handbags, we see her movies, quote her. She has become very much a part of the collective idea of society. She has become an archetype, and in many ways she has become a god. And I do think that such a person that affects people so massively will get an extremely powerful soul. And I do think that that soul or energy or what value might get into more people than than the soul of a plumber. Because while everyone is extremely important, some people do have a bigger impact. Now, I guess it really depends on what your definition and your opinion on reincarnation are. Do you mean that reincarnation means one soul moves from one life, one life, one life, one life, one life? Then of course, what I'm saying now will sound like utter bullshit and is probably best ignored. However, while I do think that a soul directly can reincarnate, I also think that a person's energy might incarnate into or float into more people. And I also think that time and space might not be as finite as we think. And as such, I think it's possible for a soul to have many incarnations at once. Now, I'm sorry if this video sounds a bit rambling, because really, these are just ideas I am tossing around in my head. And I am not saying in any way, shape, or form, in case somebody got the idea that I am, that you shouldn't be skeptical of when people claim to be Cleopatra. I'm just saying that it might not be bullshit, and that there are interesting uh, paranormal or metaphysical ideas that can explain such a claim and explain why a lot of people have a feeling of being these people. And yeah, a final note before I end this video. Um, I also think it's possible that um, some people basically they might have memories of being an Egyptian noble, and immediately they say Cleopatra, because very often past life memories are not very detailed. And Cleopatra might be the one that I've heard of, and so, oh, I was a noblewoman in Egypt, Cleopatra. And I also think that sometimes the brain just fills in the blanks. Yes, that's when you see something in the corner of eye, it might be a bag, but you see your cat, because basically the brain just fills in the blanks. I think it's possible it does the same as well, that you remember little bits and pieces, and the brain just fills in with information it has about a famous person, and so on and so forth. Like I said, these are phenomena that are difficult to completely say, this is it. You have a past life memory. You clearly was this person in another life. That's very difficult. But that doesn't mean it's not something that we should explore and study. And I definitely think it's something that should be taken seriously. So yeah, that was just some random thoughts about the concept of the too many Cleopatra syndrome. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and blessed be.